Hey everyone, welcome back to Decode Healthcare with Harshal. If you caught our last explainer, Part 5, you know we decoded the mysteries of NEC and NOS. Well, today we are tackling a mission that is absolutely crucial, mastering the punctuation marks of ICD 10-CM. So let's dive right into this, because getting a grip on these specific symbols is absolute table stakes for any serious medical coder. I want you to really think about this for a second. What if one single, tiny, overlooked bracket completely ruins your entire code selection? Because in our world, in medical coding, ignoring a simple punctuation mark, it's not just a typo. It can literally lead to denied claims, miscoded severity, and worst of all, it can trigger a massive audit. We're going to make absolutely sure that never happens to you.
All right, Section 1, the high stakes of code punctuation.
Look, to get this perfectly right, we have to establish our ultimate authority. We're not just looking at some general textbook advice here. We're decoding Section IA-7 of the official coding law. As the CMS ICD-10-CM official guidelines strictly state, the conventions and instructions of the classification take precedence over guidelines. What this means in plain English is that the official CMS text strictly overrides any textbook advice or general assumptions you might be holding on to. Moving on to Section 2, brackets and mandatory sequencing. So let's look at our first major punctuation mark, brackets. Now, according to the exact CMS legal definition, the meaning of a bracket completely changes depending on where you actually see it. In the tabular list, they simply enclose synonyms, alternative wording, or explanatory phrases. Basically, they just give you a little more context. But, and this is a massive but, in the alphabetic index, brackets are used to identify manifestation codes.
Just look at this comparison here. On one hand, tabular list brackets are honestly pretty mundane. They're really just offering alternative words. On the other hand, alphabetic index brackets, that is a strict legal sequencing mandate. If you see a code in brackets in the index, you are looking at a hard sequencing instruction.
So the absolute crucial point you need to remember is this: a code in brackets in the index cannot be your primary diagnosis. Period. No way around it. For example, if you look up an index entry like arthropathy in anxiety, you're going to see the main code and right next to it, the code M14.88 enclosed in brackets. Those brackets are essentially screaming at you that it must be sequenced second. It's a manifestation of an underlying etiology, so it is a secondary code only. Okay, Section 3, parentheses and non-essential modifiers. Now, unlike brackets in the index, parentheses are way more forgiving. The CMS guideline defines parentheses as enclosing supplementary words. We call these non-essential modifiers. Think of these as the nice-to-have words. They might be present in the physician's diagnostic statement, or they might be completely absent. But either way, they do not affect the final code number you assign. Let's walk through the exact CMS guideline example for this. Say you look up the main term enteritis in the alphabetic index, you will see the word acute right there in parentheses next to it. Acute is a non-essential modifier. However, underneath enteritis, you're going to see a sub-entry for chronic. You need to know that the non-essential word acute does not apply to the essential sub-entry chronic. Let's look at another example just to really drive this home. Take the phrase pneumonia acute double. Whether the doctor writes acute double pneumonia or just plain old pneumonia, they all point to the exact same code block. The presence of those parenthetical words simply means the code remains totally unchanged. Which brings us to Section 4, the mandatory tabular colon. We are moving on to the final symbol of our big three, the colon. And let me warn you, this one acts as a strict, mandatory lock on a diagnostic category. The official CMS definition tells us that colons are used in the tabular list after an incomplete term. Basically, this means that when you see a colon, the diagnostic term before it is legally incomplete on its own. You cannot just stop there and assign a code. It helps to think of a colon as kind of a visual equation that demands a solution. You've got the category title, right, and it ends in this giant colon. To actually complete the thought, it absolutely requires one or more of the bulleted subterms listed directly beneath it to belong to that category. If you don't have one of those specific modifiers following the colon, well, the condition is simply not assignable to that code. And finally, Section 5, conclusion, and a little teaser for our next guideline. All right, so we've broken down the exact legal meaning of these punctuation marks. Let's recap your big three takeaways for today. Number 1,
Brackets in the alphabetic index identify manifestation codes that demand secondary sequencing. Number 2, parentheses hold non-essential modifiers that do not change your code assignment. And number 3, colons in the tabular list mean a term is incomplete and absolutely requires a following modifier to be assigned. Mastering these little nuances is exactly what prevents audits and ensures your coding is fiercely accurate. Thank you so much for joining me today to decode these guidelines. Make sure you check out the playlist for our previous explainers if you missed them. And get ready for part 7, where we are going to tackle a deceptively simple but incredibly dangerous guideline, the use of and in ICD-10 CM. Because I promise you, in medical coding, the word and actually means something completely different than what you think. I'll see you in the next explainer.